mandatory, and a disappearing police force in a four-state town has residents scrambling for law enforcement. Also, a World War II bunker turned into a bed and breakfast.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt files a lawsuit seeking to stop school districts from enforcing mask mandates and requirements aimed at slowing the spread of COVID-19. And it comes just a week after four state physicians signed an open letter urging local school districts to make sure kids wear masks. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Chris Warner. Now, the lawsuit names Columbia Public Schools along with the district's Board of Education and board members. However, it is important to point that at this point in the situation, it's a class action lawsuit that would apply to any Missouri district requiring masks. Last week, more than 100 four-state doctors signed a letter to 12 four-state districts imploring them to make kids wear masks while at school. Local schools are now working with health departments and families to track COVID-19 cases. The Carl Junction School District plans to track numbers daily as they receive updates from the Jasper County and Joplin Health Department. The district's assistant superintendent says they'll use a dashboard to keep track of cases, determining how they operate for the school year.
If we had a situation where we saw that we were having a significant increase in numbers, then we would take that into consideration and we would use that information to make decisions. I can tell you that currently our numbers are very low. We have 0 staff members in isolation or quarantined. We've only got 4 students that are isolated.
The Carl Junction School District will compile data every Wednesday and post it onto the district website where anyone can see current case numbers. Healthcare providers are getting more calls for third vaccine doses from immunocompromised people. People who are immunocompromised are currently eligible to receive a third dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. Just has to be at least 28 days after they get the second dose. Others could be eligible to get a booster dose starting at the end of September. The CDC's current plan is that people can get a booster dose 8 months after they complete their vaccine round. But what if you get a booster shot less than 8 months later?
All of the information that we've been given, it would not cause the person any harm. It's just that it's not the recommended way to do it. The timing is kind of important in that you are starting to wane a little, and then you get the dose to boost things up.
Dr. Anthony Fauci has said waiting the full 8 months to get a booster would give your immune system a chance to mature before getting the additional shot. Missouri's alcohol to-go law becomes permanent this weekend. The state first started allowing to-go sales of alcohol from bars and restaurants in April of 2020. Due to a new law that takes effect this Saturday, that policy becomes permanent. Now, under the law, the drink must be in a sealable container and the customer must make a food purchase along with the alcohol. To-go sales of alcohol were a good source of revenue for many restaurants during lockdowns. The town of Fairland, Oklahoma is down to 3 police officers after the chief, assistant chief, and most of the officers resigned last week. The chief's resignation letter says it's due to a hostile work environment and slanderous allegations made about him by a Board of Trustees member. Now, last night, the city hosted a special meeting with the public to discuss the situation. Before the meeting, they interviewed Gordon Williams, a deputy with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, to fill the role of chief.
We look at it as it's the chief's department. The board is there for support, and myself as the police commissioner, I'm kind of the liaison between the board and the department. But the way that I view it is that it's the chief's department to run. We're just there for support for him.
Fairland's mayor says he's been in contact with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department and the Wyandotte Police Department to cover calls until the positions are filled. Also in Ottawa County, the FBI arrests a man in Miami who they say pushed a photographer over a wall at the Capitol during the January 6th riot. Benjamin Scott Burlew is charged with assault in special and committing acts of physical violence on restricted grounds. Burlew was arrested last Thursday, but the court documents were only released yesterday. It's hot. That's all we can really say. It's hot. And from what I understand, it's going to stay that way.
Okay, so long story short, we got to peel back the curtain just a little bit because Chris Warner is going to be kind enough to actually join us for the weather this evening as well. And right before the show started there, I told Chris, I said, I don't have a lot of weather info for you other than the fact that it's hot. But
it's a fact.
I tell you what's been interesting, Chris, when you take into account the first, say, 22 days of the month of August, our daily high was actually lingering right below 89. It is 89.3 to be exact. And to pick up 0.7 degrees, I know that doesn't sound impressive, but to pick up 0.7 degrees and do so in just the span of 4 days, that says a lot about where our temperatures have been. As we're going to ride once again the mid to high 90s, beautiful blue skies, but that's kind of the problem in and of itself because we don't have any cloud cover to slow down that sun. So while we're already pressing up into the 90s there, 91 right now in Joplin, we know we've got the heat advisory lasting all the way until this evening, topping at around 97, feeling about like 104. 2 more days of the heat advisory for Wednesday and Thursday, even Friday through Sunday. While we don't have the alert day showing up on the 7-day forecast, please know that that's still above average for this year. Chris, coming up here in just a little bit, let's take a look at thunderstorm activity for the upper plains, tropical action down in both basins, and why we cannot get a break and not get a cloud in the sky.
Well, we're looking forward to an explanation on that. Michael, thank you. Well, the Biden administration says it's confident that the withdrawal from Afghanistan can be completed before the August 31st deadline. But others aren't so sure and are criticizing the president for not extending the timeline in order to make sure no one is left behind. Skylar Henry has more details from the White House.
The military says it's doing everything it can to make sure every American and Afghan ally gets out of the country before the August 31st deadline.
90 flights total yesterday that left the Kabul airport. That is counted for 19,000 evacuees now safely out of Afghanistan.
President Biden announced Tuesday that he will not be extending the deadline, but says he has asked the Pentagon and State Department for contingency plans if the withdrawal is not yet complete.
The completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow access to the airport for those who were transporting out.
The president says staying beyond the deadline would be dangerous for U.S. troops.
Every day we're on the ground is another day we know that ISIS-K is seeking to target the airport and attack both U.S. and allied forces and innocent civilians.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are criticizing the administration's handling of the withdrawal and questioning whether the U.S. can complete the operation of getting people out before the deadline.
Don't put a timeline until every American comes home.
2 congressmen, Democrat Seth Moulton and Republican Peter Meyer, made an unauthorized trip to Kabul Tuesday to see the situation for themselves.
Really? We're trying to get people out?
In a statement, they said because we started the evacuation so late that no matter what we do, we won't be able to get everyone out on time. The White House pushed back, saying we advise against any Americans, whether elected or not, attempting to travel to Kabul right now. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Representatives Moulton and Meyer say they flew on jump seats in the aircraft and did not take space from any evacuees. The Pentagon says it altered missions in Afghanistan in order to provide protection for the congressmen. And that's a look at today's top stories and weather in the first 7 minutes of KOAM News at noon. Still ahead, how a World War II bunker has become a hotspot for vacationers. And later, a 4-state school lays its claim to best of the best. You may not think about the perfect vacation rental being underground, but that's exactly where guests are going in France to experience a World War II bunker turned B&B. Ian Lee has the story from London.
Drive by quickly and you might miss this bed and breakfast buried in the French landscape.
Bonjour.
Owner Serge Collou is a bit eccentric. You'd have to be to convert an old World War II bunker into a guest house. He says we adapted this bunker while preserving a certain feel, but we wanted to give the building a new lease on life. It took a lot of elbow grease and more than 18 months to renovate his 4,300 square foot crib. Adorned with artifacts from the war, the hideaway is a hot spot for history buffs and a party pad too. Collou has his stash of booze locked away because he says guests aren't the only ones who like to let loose in the bunker. But underground fortresses aren't unique along the French coast. Germany built hundreds during World War II, part of its Atlantic Wall that failed to defend against Allied forces. Nearly 80 years later, most are just wasting away in the sand and salty air. Her Ferrand has dedicated his life to save this dark chapter of French history. He says these bunkers will eventually disappear, so we should preserve the most beautiful ones. Like Toulouse, where for just under $400, you too can spend a night in this room without a view. Ian Lee, CBS News.
It certainly looks pretty cozy. Well, the bunker turned B&B has been open for about a year now and has had both French and German guests. Well, still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
It's August, and that means it's a month which has 3 of my favorite food holidays. So join me as we whip up a farm-to-table favorite that's as good as it gets.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
A couple of interesting things to point out here when we get to our daily almanac. And I want to concentrate here on the bottom portion when we talk about our precipitation, because it's going to be dry the rest of this week. Our next really good shot for rain isn't going to be until Sunday into Monday. But if we go back to June 1, the infamous beginning of meteorological summer, well, historically, we're down 1.39 inches. So, I mean, right on par for where we should be, right? That's not a big deal. Go back to January 1. We're down 1.41 inches from historical norms. 1.39 compared to 1.41. Isn't it amazing how Mother Nature has a tendency to do that? Unreal. Luckily, we won't approach that record from 1983 that stretched all the way up to 101, but the heat is arising off of 7th and Rangeline, where it's 91 degrees and already feeling like 99. We've got a whole bunch of high 80s, low 90s on there. Want to pick on Miami and Grove because earlier this morning they dipped down to 68 degrees. Yeah, well, they're right up there with the clubhouse leaders right now as Grove checks in at 92, and we've been harping on this all week with our heat advisories lasting 2 more days. Humidity actually not too bad right now, and if you can find some shade and let the breeze take hold, you know what? It's almost tolerable outside, despite the fact that when we talk about our heat index readings, we're sitting mid to high 90s. Haven't seen anybody hit triple digits as of yet. Little light cloud cover associated with some morning thunderstorms that stretch from Wichita up to I-70. Our rain has been extremely limited, and even everything that was in northern Missouri and southern Iowa this morning, where they had 60-mile-an-hour winds and torrential downpours, even that's broken up. Now most of the activities down on the Gulf Coast. When we talk about the severe thunderstorm risk map, we are going to keep that through the upper plains. You'll notice that almost mimics exactly where the jet stream is, where we have the colder air and the warmer air. And I tell you what, we've been kind of blasé this hurricane season, only down to the letter H, with the last one being Henri over the northeast coast. But we've got 3 of them bubbling up right now in the Atlantic Basin. They got a good chance to make September and October very, very interesting from the hurricane perspective. And now we've got another one that is just generated out in the Pacific. Pacific's going to be on the letter N next time they have a named storm. Atlantic, like I said, only on the H. Afternoon planner, no, it's going to feel about like 103 to 104 this afternoon. Overnight, clear skies, gorgeous night. Tell you what, if you can get out and take advantage of the nights, it's wonderful to be going for a walk. I mean, it's perfect because mid-70s, take that. It's just the daily highs that are a pain because we've got 2 more days of this. And Chris, even Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like I said, there's not a heat advisory. Man.
Still going to be toasty.
We're riding low to mid-90s here to finish off August.
But, you know, honestly, I feel like that's about where we should be. I mean, it's the end of August, September. I feel like this is usually when we see some of our hottest times.
Like I said, it's just like our precipitation. Mother Nature's got a way of catching up and making things normal real fast.
That she does. That she does. Michael, thank you so much. We take this time now to honor one of our many 4-state heroes. Patrick Harrison served in the U.S. Army from 1990 to 2006. A native of Galena, Kansas, Harrison was stationed in Iraq, and we're proud to thank Sergeant Patrick Harrison, tonight's 4-state hero. What better way to celebrate a holiday than with some delicious farm-to-table catfish? Howard's serving it up sandwich style today in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
We're a nation that loves our food holidays, like we need an excuse to eat mac and cheese or a glazed donut. So with August being Sandwich Month, as well as National Catfish Month and Peach Month, I'm whipping up a dish that would make any food lover proud. We start by seasoning some U.S. farm-raised catfish with salt, pepper, cayenne, and a bit of onion powder. And for those of you who may not be familiar with domestically farmed catfish, it's raised in freshwater ponds by farmers who really take pride in all they do. Then these beauties are pan-seared for a few minutes on each side. You know, the nice thing about catfish is that it's firm enough to saute, yet it's delicate enough that it melts in our mouth. While they saute, we mix together some mayo with peach preserves. And since it's sandwich month, we top a hoagie roll with some sliced tomato, shredded lettuce, place on our freshly cooked fillets, and dollop on our peachy good sauce. Now we top that with some crumbled bacon. If only everything in life was so simple and so tasty. To get the recipe for what we call our peachy good catfish sandwich, all you have to do is visit our website. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, saluting a month filled with not one or two, but three of my all-time favorites. Now that's a reason to say, ooh, it's so good.
Well, you can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. All you need to do is go to our website. That's KOAMnewsnow.com. Now, here's a look at 4 state market prices. Pittsburgh community schools are recognized for their performing arts programs. The Kansas State High School Activities Association selected Pittsburgh for the Performing Arts School of Excellence Award. Now, the award goes to the school with the best performances across all performing arts activities, including debate, music, and theater.
And I found a lot more inspiration in my own seniors. I would give the credit to them because of them, I enjoyed what I did, and I'm trying to emulate and give it to the underclassmen.
Pittsburgh was chosen as the winner out of 356 eligible schools in the state.
Quite amazing, and you know, one thing that I wanted to pass along this morning, it's a foundation that was laid, of course, by the late great Greg Shaw.
Yeah.
People like Susan Lauschman, and now to see that the mantle has been passed over to a younger generation of people like Cooper Neal, and the success that they've had at that school and how they invigorate those young students to take part in those fine arts. It's a testament to all of you who are educators, and we thank you so much.
For sure.
Absolutely.
What's coming up at 5?
I'd love to know.
I'll tell you, help wanted vaccine required. More job listings are requiring the COVID vaccine as a term of employment, and that number has increased since the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine. Plus, a Fort Scott doctor says they're seeing success with an at-home treatment protocol for COVID-19. We're going to hear about it and have what top health experts have to say. And we're taking you to a groundbreaking and ribbon cutting in Lamar for the future Wyatt Earp Park. Hope you join us for those stories, a lot more. KOAM News at 5.
Certainly a lot to look forward to, guys. Thank you so much. That's our time for now. We'll see you back here at 5.